Boy, do we have quite the information drops in this week's episode for Yozakura family. I've been talking about a proper antagonist for Act 1 of the series, and in terms of a first impression, the introduction of Kawashita has surely gotten everyone's attention by the end of the episode. As Core 1 is now completed, we push into new territory as the battle shonen side of Yozafam is about to start its streak. Content coverage wise, this episode adapts the introductory pieces of Chapter 1, with chapters 35 and 36 being the main sections for this episode. This week played out beat for beat compared to the manga, and quite frankly, there's quite a bit to discuss. Starting with the beginning of the episode, the staff finally went back and adapted the missing piece from Chapter 1. It was one of the details that I felt was necessary, as for the longest time, we only saw Tayo's family through their death and not even a moment in life. Even with such a brief showcase of family interaction, you can see that this was a healthy family, and looking back on the funeral, you now have the full picture of Tayo's origin. The details of his family's death only got more complicated with the context of Chapter 35. Now, I've been talking about this marble for a while now, and coming off of the mall episode, we finally get to see what was so important. The information within contained a guest list for the previous head of the Yozakura family's wedding reception, and among that list comes the Asano family's name, notably the mother and father. Considering that Tayo and Mutsumi are childhood friends, this isn't far out of the realm of reason in the slightest. It's clear that the families are close, and once again, we arrive at the conclusion that the truth must be pursued, and with haste, given the ones behind all of this managed to stay hidden for so long. Mutsumi's reaction being full-on worst case scenario, and you can't fully blame her knowing that her family has some connection in the death of her husband's. We were fortunate enough to see another one of those relationship-focused moments to Shion's displeasure, but the takeaway is that this entire pending conflict is something they must see through together. It's not like Mutsumi herself is the culprit. Everybody is a victim to some extent, and so in order to follow up more on this small lead, we make our way to the Library of the Dead. This entire portion of the episode was pretty much done to a T. They always say to be mindful and silent in the library, and this time there's an actual consequence for even breathing too loudly. Very extreme levels of upholding the rules by our silver-ranked librarian me, but what we are here for is more information on the death of the Asano family, more specifically the cause of the death. Just knowing who or what is involved can be a case of give an inch, take a mile, so to speak, and upon visiting his father's records, we learn that the marble also serves as a key. Even if he went down a dark path, Kurogawa was thorough through and through, and at last, we get the name of the organization as titled by the episode, the Tanpopo. Now, the name Tanpopo comes from the Japanese name for dandelion, and as pointed out by Kyoichiro in the events after, those within the organization share the same tattoo. The imagery you come to think of at this point is a cherry blossom versus the dandelion. One will wilt and the other will thrive. This information was hidden for a reason and even had a mechanism in place to destroy the evidence in the event it was ever pursued. An explosion inside a library is definitely not me's favorite, but thankfully being sensitive to hearing can provide some openings of escape. I don't even recall Tayo having to return to this place for the rest of the series, and I don't think a soul could blame him either. From this point on, the rabbit hole just keeps on getting deeper as Kyoichiro has his own bone to pick with the Tanpopo as well. On top of the Asano family becoming victims, the previous family head is also a victim of assassination, and even then, the Tanpopo has been able to avoid Kyoichiro's grasp. Seeing this really puts into perspective of just how tough this upcoming enemy may be. To be able to escape Kyoichiro's grasp especially proves that finally getting payback will not be a simple task. With a common and yet crucial detail being those of the medical field all having accidents and Tayo's father also being in that same field, we arrive at one man connected to them all. Makoto Kawashita, aka the director of the Kawashita Medical Office. At last, we finally have the introduction of the antagonist for Act 1. Potentially innocent or not, the fact of the matter is that he's a person of interest. The family has never gotten a lead to get them this far, and it's pretty much all hands on deck as the rest of the episode pushes forward into Chapter 36. This time, the operation starts off with an undercover elderly approach assisted by Mutsumi. Given we saw Bon and Keiko last week, it seems that their presence is already taking effect. Now, Kawashita is played by Yuji Ueda, who has also played in the role of Kimberly in 2003's Full Metal Alchemist. Just going off first impressions, I think he will end up proving to be the right choice. Kawashita is a very calm and yet twisted antagonist, and as such, I think his overall demeanor is portrayed perfectly in the episode. It gives you the slip, making you think that he's a sincere character, but in reality, there's a lot more twisted behavior going on in his head. With that in mind, the major info dump in this episode arguably sets up developments for the entire future of the series. Back in episode 2, we learned that the Yozakura family all have special abilities, and that the head of the family is the one who passes that down to their children. Come to find out in more detail that what makes them special is within the blood itself with a protein called somanine. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. It might be called somani, but I'm waiting for the English dubcast to confirm it. This protein, when ingested, can affect those who are not in the family, and as such results in a powerful doping agent. The end game of the Tampopo is to create a supply chain of this said substance as a form of drug, if you will, and to create a distribution network. If it's used within the medical field, it would potentially be able to help a lot of patients, but to what degree or side effects is unknown. There's a reason why people typically don't go introducing foreign things to their body, and as such, I can imagine there's a good reason why the Yozakuras don't go out and donate blood. The highest priority wouldn't be to secure the siblings, but rather secure the head of the family herself, as her very heart is a natural factory for the somanine, thus promoting the acquisition and removal of Mutsumi's heart. This is where the story starts to have its heavier moments rear around the corner, and with the full picture now in view, it's self-explanatory as to why this can't happen. This plan not only opposes the themes of the series when it comes to protecting family, but also gives the impression as if the Yozakuras are viewed as precious merchandise waiting to have their use fulfilled. This looming threat that has constantly taken stabs at the family is going to be what pushes the series into major arcs, and I expect the first one to be the start of season 2. To wrap this up, at long last, the men at the center of it all finally come face to face with each other, and Kawashita manages to hold his own against Tayo. We knew he wasn't a normal doctor, but I don't think people were expecting some level of combat efficiency, let alone to be able to withstand his Yay shot. The episode wraps up with a warning to Tayo, being that with his life extended, he needs to cherish it. They are both aware of each other's plans now, and as such, it's only a matter of time before they meet again. This was the ideal way to conclude Core 1. Last week, the Yozakura staff did drop a trailer with the visuals for Core 2, as well as a brief peek into the upcoming song by Fripside. If you have made it this far and you do enjoy the series, I can tell you now, you're going to get even more invested from here, knowing we have a direction to go now, and the mysteries will only further as we pursue the truth. It would seem that we are not due for a break, so expect a new OP and ED set of visuals come next week. Overall, the most important episode thus far, sending us into new pursuits, and as such, I hope the team understands what is at stake here for this adaptation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to bring me to the end of this week's review. As always, thank you very much for watching, and please let me know how you feel about Core 1 as a whole in the comment section down below. Be safe out there, and I will see you all next Sunday for the kickoff of Core 2.